Let's say good morning to our co-hosts on the day. She is Maria Lawrence, and good morning, Maria.
Good morning. I'm not used to introducing me first. It's exciting.
You got to
I had
defer.
to be on my game.
You're looking
to say
good.
hi.
Sounding good, feeling good.
Earphones are right.
Earphones are on the proper way.
I don't know. We have to tell my esteemed colleague here that he may have to help me with that in the interim.
Well, he assumes the job as doorman as well. His name is Bill Kearns, so we do have a Bill and Maria. It's just a different Bill this morning.
Different Bill?
Good morning, Mr. Kearns.
Different Bill, less rank, and I just want to know how the Queen feels in being in this room, this small room here with four guys this morning.
I'm fine. I can hold my own.
You can.
Yeah.
If anybody can, you can. And so it's great to be here with Maria this morning.
I know if we all take off hiking somewhere, she's the last person standing. I know that.
There you go.
And we'll be the last one behind her. She'll be way ahead of the rest of us.
Our guest includes Steve Catlett, who apparently has no sound in both ears or just the right. Are you plugged in? Look underneath you there, Steve.
See, we were so worried about the chair situation that we didn't even check to see.
The chairs did become an issue before, and they haven't in a while, but they did become an issue. We don't have a caller, so if you just take them off, it'd be easier to hear that way, Steve. Just flop them off to the side. We'll get that fixed at the half-hour break. Also, Gary Wine, he is the county administrator. Gary, good morning to you.
Good morning, and just for the record, I bought a pair of these, and I've been practicing at home, Maria, so you notice they're on perfect.
That's great. Right. That's great. Well, I have not, and it's always a challenge. So
they're only complicated before you figure them out.
Right.
Once you get the idea of how they actually work, they're simple.
Well, you take them off for 5 seconds and they get all twisted up.
The struggle is real.
It is. It's like a chainsaw. You take a thing apart and you just pull it one way and you're done.
You're done.
Yeah.
I've cleaned chainsaws.
Yeah.
And that is an issue, getting the chain back on.
Yeah, you take it off and you look down like, who tied that in the knot? All I did was lay it on the ground.
Yeah.
But once you figure it out,
that's it.
It's like getting the string. Every weed whacker I've had seems to take the new string in a different way.
Yes.
And the one that I have now does it in a way none of the other ones I've ever had have done it. And once you do it, it's really like, oh, wow, that's a great invention. That's really simple. But then I don't have to do it for another year. I'm like, how did I do that again? I have to go on YouTube and look up how do I string my weed whacker.
Or you just go buy another one. It's got fresh string on it.
No, that's when the spark plug wears out.
Oh, gotcha.
I was sold this really cool tool on TikTok. If you don't know, they sell things on it. So I bought this wired head for my weed eater. It was like $6.99, but it was $20 to ship it. So it was a heck of a deal.
That's a racket right there.
I know, right?
It's all about the shipping.
Should have ordered from Temu.
Yeah.
Let's talk some county business here, gentlemen, and start first with impact fees. You have public input on the impact fees. Have you had your first one?
We've had two. We've had two.
Okay.
And
how are those going?
I'll let Steve talk to how they went, but don't forget the 2nd of July is a round table. I believe it's at 10 a.m., Steve?
10 a.m.
10 a.m. at the Dunn Building in the multipurpose room. So
next week, yep. That'll
come
be our
in.
last.
But the first two, Steve, I believe, went well.
I do. The first thing I want to say before we talk about that is wishing Sheriff Blair a speedy recovery. He had his hip replaced last week.
Yes.
And Anthony Delegati out of our administrative office had surgery as well. Some disc work done in his upper neck, and so he's recovering too. So wish both of them a speedy recovery and hope they get back soon. But
Anthony's in the John Gilstrap Club with the back and neck surgeries
right.
there.
Yeah. So, but the hearings, the morning hearing, we only had, I think, one person show up, and they weren't there just to listen. But then in the evening, that 5 o'clock, when we had probably 10 or 12 people there from the public, and had some good comments.
What kind of comments?
One gentleman was negative about it and feeling that you shouldn't have to pay it. But there were several people there from the housing business, the development business, and I think they truly understand why we're doing this. And the general consensus now, I think it's fair to say, is we're going to be in that about $5,500 range for housing, and that seems to be. We don't think that will affect the growth situation at all at this point, to be honest with you. So,
and when we had Eddie Gokenauer a couple times, he said the number was somewhere around 66 was what you were looking at, but you've sort of pulled back a little
5 to 6 maybe range. And yeah, the 4 categories that the county is most interested in to help our situation is county administration, law enforcement, fire and rescue, and parks and rec. And those four together, the maximum we can charge is $4,500, $45 and $21 or something. So we're probably going to go to the max on those four. The other category is Board of Education. They qualify for little over 7,000 a home, and that's where we don't. The consensus is not to go the full maximum amount, and so it's a situation we're probably looking at this point. My guess is it's going to be maybe $1,000 a house for the school system. So,
why was the consensus to not max out the school contribution?
a lot of thought in that. First of all, there was some interest in not giving the school board maybe zero because they get 78% of the tax base. We didn't think we should go to the max at the first year. The beauty of this thing is that whatever we decide, it's not etched in stone and it's not there in perpetuity. We can come back the following year and change it and tweak it. We can go back the following year after that. So it's very flexible in terms of how you can adjust it. So that's a wonderful thing.
If you're projecting 1,000 new houses a year being built, and that's pretty much what you're projecting, right? That's $1 million at $1,000 a house.
Right. And for the school system, that's not a lot of money. It's probably going to be about $1.2 million if the growth averages out to where it is. But it's still money that they could use to purchase new buses, to maybe put over several years, have enough money to put an addition on an existing school because of the growth. And so, it's a good way to start, we think. And then, like I said, it's subject to change down the road. So
Yeah, and nobody understands all of this completely, right? What they're learning as they go, what the demands are, what the money can be spent on. But I think it's important, and all 5 county commissioners have said it over and over and over again, is, here we go reaching in again to the pockets of the people in the county. This opportunity is not to reach in to the property owners, but yet the ones that are coming that are new. So why start big and not need it, right? They've identified certain demands, the numbers that they've gotten, they can stand behind, they can speak to every dollar that's what they're going to use it for. So I think it's just realistic to start smaller and see what happens instead of being greedy up front.
So Gary, I think the $5,500. I think you said, Steve.
That's correct.
Mm-hmm. So that's not as large as I was thinking it was going to be. But what do you think it's going to generate annually, revenue wise, based on our current growth pattern that we've seen over the last
about 5.5 million.
About 5.5 million.
Mm-hmm.
So
maybe a few dollars more, but
right. And I think for what it's going to be used for, it's going to be well spent.
Well, to go back to your earlier question about the meetings, Rob, one thing that we heard that resonated, and Steve mentioned the gentleman that was in opposition, was a grace period, right? Well, I think that's why they've been out here. That's why they've been on the radio. That's why we use social media saying, hey, we're working on these. Our target date was 1st July, and it was August, more realistically probably September. So for the public's purposes, we've worked very hard to say, hey, these things are coming. Probably, and the commission hasn't acted yet, but there's opportunity for them to say, okay, we'll enact this September 1st, and then we'll do a 30-day grace period from there to kind of give people. So there has never been any intent for this to be a surprise. They've worked hard now for almost a year, and you know how many times they've been here, and everywhere they've been, they've said, hey, these things are coming. We're going to try and let growth help pay for growth and see where they can go.
What is your day of starting this?
It's unclear yet.
Still unclear.
It will be the first of a month.
But it won't be July 1st.
No, it's not going to be. Realistically, Steve, probably September.
Probably September 1, hopefully.
And the vote has been taken, not vote, but the decision has been made?
The process has started. They've not
been finalized.
It's not been finalized.
But there's a different aspect, too. That we're talking strictly residential on the 5,500. There's a non-residential commercial industrial side.
Is that set yet?
And that's the part that we're really struggling with, to be honest with you. That's the kind of growth we don't want to hurt for sure. And so we're really contemplating how to handle that. It'll be based on square footage. To be honest, on the ballot the last time, referendum, the citizens voted for a fire fee increase, but it was for non-residential only. And it was extremely high. And it was in terms of 4 to 5 times larger than what they were paying. So they took a pretty good beating on that, and I'm not so sure that we want to do that with the impact fees at this point. So that's the part we're trying to figure out. There's a possibility we may even delay that part of it for a year, until we study it more and get a real better feel for it. So
I think when you're looking at fire fees and things of that nature, that's for existing people that are already here. The impact fees are people that are wanting to move to Berkeley County, they want to build a new home, and with what you're paying for the cost of a new home, low end anymore, but $350,000, high end, whatever. The amount of money is very minute, but it's a one-time thing. When you're looking at increasing fire fees, that's what people are concerned about. They're on fixed incomes. They've lived here all their lives, and it just continues to increase.
Right.
So in terms of what you just mentioned, Steve, for the business perspective, business, industry, what have you coming in, and how you come up with that number, are pilots still in the picture for those organizations? Pilots being payment in lieu of taxes. I know some community members get a little concerned when you start saying, wait, you're giving away the farm here. And I think the development folks generally say, well, we got to get them here somehow. But if you're not having them pay anything for 5 years, so what does this do in conjunction with that, in lieu of that? How does that all work? Or is that what you're still working on?
Well, we're still working on it, obviously, but in terms of pilots, I would say since I've been in office for 2.5 years now, we haven't had any pilots created, and I think the future of that's going to be very limited as to what it's been in the past. So we certainly want commercial growth and industrial growth in Berkeley County. It's a wonderful thing, and we don't want to hurt that. But you have to take into respect the fact that those fire fees, for instance. I know one organization is paying $30,000 a year, and now they're paying $140,000. So
Big difference.
big difference. And so it's there's a lot to take into consideration, and this whole impact thing was a lot more. Is not as flexible as we thought it was going to be, and so we're learning as we go. But I think that's what's nice about starting out moderately at $5,500 on a house, and then tweaking it each year if we need to. And you may even have some areas where you could bring it back, draw it back.
So, Maria, to the pilot question, there really is an appetite from the current county commission, unless there is a great benefit to the community. 300 jobs, right? Okay, they might entertain pilot if there's no real incentive. They don't even want to hear it. But what they do have in their toolbox now that they never had before are the 2 TIF districts, north and south, that are also a tool in the toolbox of the development efforts, not housing, but commercial industrial. So they can use the monies that the TIF districts are accruing to help with infrastructure, not to that particular business, but to the property line of the business, where before those costs would have been borne by the business and then subsidized with a pilot. So they just have different tools now. I think they're more fair tools, and you're seeing great things happen. You're going to see a $13 million public safety complex on the north end of Berkeley County in the next 3 years. That'll have fire, law, EMS, all in one building right there on Brown Road.
Because of these impact fees?
No, those will be because of the TIF district.
TIF district.
The TIF district should support that.
But if it doesn't, the impact fees could help there as well.
Impact fees can help.
And because of these things, we don't have to go back to the residents and raise the ambulance fee or put on the commission decides on the ambulance fee solely. It doesn't go before the voters. Or put it on the ballot for another increase in fire fees. So hopefully we can control those by doing the things we're doing. And that's what our objective is. So, but we need these impact fees. We really do. And it's going to help us tremendously at the county level. And so it's the right thing to do. There's no question in my mind. I have no hesitation about doing the impact fees at all. And I think we should start out moderately, and then if we need to increase, fine, then so be it. But
how often can they be reviewed, reset?
Every year.
And what's the process or procedure for it? Does it involve more public hearings?
It doesn't involve a public hearing. It just involves the commission in public session. So none of this is behind closed doors. All this happens in front of the camera and the microphones in the county commission chambers.
So there doesn't need to be a public comment period for you to change that.
No,
there didn't need to be this time, but we chose to do it because we want to be transparent and be open to the public and have people give them the opportunity to come in and say, hey, I encourage everybody. I've encouraged 10 people over the last week to come to our July 2nd next Wednesday if they have concerns and express yourself. That's what we want.
There's no law that says they have to go through these public processes. They're doing this because they want to hear what the public has to say. I said it earlier. They don't know everything, right? So they're led by a consultant. They're led by the people that vote. So they're working hard to get input from every direction.
You mentioned the Board of Education and where you've come in that place. Have you had discussions with either the superintendent, with the board members to say, hey, this is what we're looking to do. What do you think? Where do you want us to go? How can we work together? That kind of thing.
We haven't had a public meeting with the groups as a whole, but I have talked to the superintendent several times about it personally. I've talked to several board members personally to let them know what our thoughts are. I've encouraged them to come to our meeting next week. There's give and take. People need to understand this, and I think they do have a legitimate concern that if we pass impact fees, people are going to say, well, we don't need any future bond levies because now we have impact fees they can pay for new schools, and that's not going to be the case. That money's not going to be there to build schools. Maybe add an addition on or something, but not build a new school. So they're still going to need bond levies. And I think they, as a whole, understand the objective we had was to help county government and not the school system. There's some folks that say, well, they get 78% of the tax base. That should be enough, and we need to take care of the county business. So that's also comments that have been made. And so it's probably not going to please all school board members if we go 1,000 a house. But at the same time, it's subject to change. And if we find out down the road there's a great need to add more schools and we could help in that direction, then that option will be available down the road. So it's not like, again, we're committed in perpetuity once we make this decision. And that's the great thing about this.
So I think you may hear more. So is there a potential or possibility, because the impact fees are be able to use for fire, for safety, correct? Is there a potential or possibility of reduction of fire fees?
Absolutely.
Because of these revenue dollars that will come in from impact fees? Is there potential of reduction of fire fees to be able to, that would be long-term for people, for existing residents?
You can't use it for salaries and benefits and those things.
Sure.
Only for capital development, for new growth. So I can't see it possibly being a reduction, but I can see it maybe not causing it to ask for another increase, okay? And that, to me, is important.
So you have go ahead, finish. I'm sorry.
Well, just, where we are now at the fee structure with the ambulance authority, for instance, we're doing really well. The ambulance authority is self-sustained between the fees that they collect and the fees that we get for the ambulance fees, and they have about a $9 million budget, and they're holding their own very well. This will help with new ambulances and things, the impact fee, only new stuff, new equipment and stuff, but not for salaries and benefits. And that's the part that if we had the 1% sales tax, then I think that would put us into a situation where, now we can start talking about reducing some fees, perhaps.
Don't go that route yet, because here's a question for you from Jeff Haddix. Why should an individual homeowner who's building be penalized? Why not make impact fee effects for someone, building over 2 or 3 houses? For instance, that are just someone in Berkeley County who grew up here wanting to build a new house.
We asked that, and you can't. You can't exclude those. It has to be all new growth. You can't just because somebody has a property, and that's where it hurts. And another reason maybe to keep it moderate, somebody has land and they want to have one of their children build on that property, they're going to have to pay the fee, unfortunately. But you can't exclude those situations.
And let's revisit this a second from what's in statute and what's not, in terms of when you have an impact fee, you have to do it this particular way. You guys didn't get to pick and choose which way you wanted to do it, correct?
Right. So, I go back to your buddy John Hardy on the radio last week, and he talked about, and we all know John pushes the envelope and doesn't just take yes or no because someone says. And part of what this is standards, right? So the consultant leads you through the way. Because the law is vague or unclear, it's important to stick with the standard and not veer left or right too heavy, or you find yourself in court with a challenge. So it's all about trying not to get challenged, where you end up either one, having charged so much to give it back, or having to stop what you're doing. So it's the safest way per the consultants, is this is the way it's done across the country. It's battled through challenges in courts around the country, and this survived. If you try and get too creative, you will get challenged in the decision. And again, we have good lawyers that work on the team that also offer advice to the commission that says, yeah, they're right. It's smartest if you just try to stay in line and not get creative. Because honestly, that was one of the first topics of discussion was, well, wait a minute. Steve Catlett lived in his house for almost 50 years and has 10 acres. And if his daughter wants to build and let his granddaughters live next door, he wants to give her 3 acres and build a house. Why should she be penalized? They're lifelong residents. They're like, don't do that.
If you have an existing house and you want to put an addition on it, how does an impact fee affect
Not
that?
impact.
No impact. If you buy an existing home that was already built, no impact. Okay, it's only on new growth only.
If I buy an existing home, tear it to the ground, and then build from the ground up, is that an impact fee?
I want to answer that with a no, but
I think a no, but
yeah.
I would say no impact fee. Yeah.
But there may be.
So,
We don't know for sure.
That will be in the final document. There won't be to guess. That'll be in there. But I believe we'd had that discussion. If Chad Weinbrenner were sitting here, he'd be shaking his head, probably text. But I believe the answer is no.
But that, again, is not your choice. That's what the legal precedent is.
Correct.
So you're not picking and choosing who pays an impact fee.
No,
And
sir.
that's why you take that equation out. It makes it simple. You have to pay it if it's a new house. So.
Yeah. Is it 5,500 even,
affordable
Steve?
housing is a concern for the commission, obviously, for
always.
Berkeley County, right? But why are these people moving here? Because it's cheaper than Maryland and Virginia, the housing.
Where the impact fees
And
are much
the,
higher.
The taxes are cheaper here.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Let's
I
be
believe
honest
the
about
proffers, the proffers in Loudoun County are right around 80,000.
Yeah. I think in Frederick it's 18, I think was the last
28
figure.
is what I.
Wow.
Yeah. So
80 in Loudon.
Yes, sir.
yeah.
Yeah. I've heard a couple different variants of that figure, but either way it's up there.
It's big. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've not seen them. That's just much like you. But nonetheless, they're not cheap. And, the data center capital of the world, you heard that on the radio the other day. They've got 203 of them to date, generating some $900 million annually. So it's a big deal.
Yes. And we can get into data centers in Berkeley County again in a moment after the break. Steve and Gary are here for the full hour to start off the program. And there's nothing in public health that comes out of impact fees?
Look at him.
It was not a category that was eligible. The other three that were not considering was sewer and water, which already have capacity improvement fees, which is in a sense an impact fee, obviously, and roads, which the state takes care of our roads. So that's why those three were eliminated. But
Just for the record, I did not prompt Rob to ask that question.
I understand that, but it was not eligible for this type of funding.
Bill, is public health affected by growth in the community?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Maybe you should get it.
But with the development within our county and all the places being built, the staff have to be able to go out and get those places permitted.
Well, that would be an operational expense, correct?
Would be.
Yeah, which is different than an impact fee.
That is correct.
Right. Okay, gentlemen, stay comfortable. And Steve, I took the air conditioning down a little bit for you, make it a little cooler in here. Want to keep the big guy comfortable. This segment of our program today brought to you by the Berkeley County Health Department, where you can get free rate on test kits in the Berkeley and Morgan County offices. Just go in and ask for Bill Kearns himself, and he'll hand it to you personally. Maybe not today.
Maybe later today.
Also by CMA Honda 383 200, Maria, by the way.
Now, I've got a wild and restless.
This segment of our program today brought to you in part by the Skinner Accident and Injury Attorneys at SkinnerWins.com. Also by the Berkeley County Health Department's Quick Response Team. In studio with Maria Lawrenson, who is co-hosting today. Good to see you again, Maria.
Good morning. Happy to be here.
We have a Bill part of the equation, but it's not Bill Stubblefield. He is out this week. Maybe back Friday, not sure yet. We'll find out tomorrow. We have Bill Kearns.
Well, Bill being out today and gave me the opportunity to be here this morning. So not that I don't want Bill here, but I'm gracious that you asked me to be able to come here, and also acting as your equipment coordinator.
I was going to say, and
our
it's
esteemed
that
county
chair.
commissioner.
It's that chair that does the headphone retool. So
And the door.
And the door.
But
Doorman.
Maria took care of the door.
I did.
Yeah. What rank did you leave the Marine Corps at?
Sergeant.
Sergeant. So admiral and a sergeant.
Yeah. They don't compare.
I don't know.
Marine Corps sergeant's pretty tough.
Well, that's true. Absolutely.
little R. Army action over there, right?
Yes.
Steve Catlett, the Vice President of the Berkeley County Commission, is with us today. Steve, good morning again.
I feel official now. I have my headphones on.
You look like a real
You look
radio guy
great.
now.
You look great, Steve.
Gary Wine, County Administrator. Gary, good to see you.
Glad to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, we talked impact fees in that first segment. The two most interesting words in the English language in Berkeley County over the last year have been sales tax. And Steve mentioned those just before the break to stir it up just a little bit, Steve. So let's talk about that for a moment before we get into some firefighter stuff and what have you. And in the 9 o'clock hour, you're actually going to hang out and talk 4th of July with us with Buzz Poland.
Not 4th of July.
Labor Day. Yeah,
Day breakfast.
my apologies. That's a different interview with another person.
Right.
But in regards to that, why do the impact fees not solve the money math that you think will be answered by the sales tax?
Well, first and foremost, it can't be used for salaries and benefits, and that's what we need is personnel. We need personnel in firefighting. And we're working on that as best we can. We need personnel for deputy sheriffs, and we need personnel for 911 and all those things, prosecuting attorney's office, and an impact does not qualify for those funding. And sales tax is unlimited. You can do whatever you choose to do with it. So we got it through the Senate this year, 25-8. We just were in Stonewall here a few weeks ago for our annual County Commission Association annual meeting, and it is again the number one legislative priority for the statewide association is the safety bill, it's called, to get counties have an option to either impose a 1% sales tax or a amusement tax, whatever they choose, and it's optional. So, and you know, one of the speakers at our public hearing last week said, well, instead of having impact fees, why don't y'all just put a sales tax in, you know? And I said, well, we would love to do that, you know, and maybe we wouldn't be doing this. But unfortunately, we're not able to do it at this point. But it's still the top priority of the whole wide county commission association's agenda. And we're going to work hard on the House of Delegates this year to try to get it passed. So,
Are you employing a lobbyist once again?
I'm sure we are. Yes, because to be honest with you, the bills we've gotten passed over the last few years wouldn't have happened without that service. So
The current contract doesn't end until October.
Yeah.
So they're still.
That's when you'll discuss
we'll
that.
make a decision. It's an annual decision. So, but I would think that until we get to 1% at least, we need it. And what's nice is we have the whole state, all the commissioners across the state are working hard for this. You know, I had lunch last week with State Treasurer Larry Pack and some folks. And I talked to him about it, and he actually agrees that the counties need that home rule and that 1%. He understands our situation. And he's a very good friend of Vernon Chris, who is the House Finance Chair. And I said, well, he's one of our largest obstacles.
Captain No, yeah.
Could you help us with him? And he said, I'd be glad to, Steve. I'll work on him for you. So
good luck.
If we could get his thoughts changed, that would go a long way. So we're trying to define just how many votes are we short. You know, I've heard 8, I've heard 4, I've heard 12. So, but we're going to try to define that before we go into next year's session and work on those people that
the legislature simply grants you the ability to put that as a referendum on the ballot. Doesn't give you the authority to impose the sales tax.
That's correct. But it's a simple vote majority, and we feel very certain that the people in Berkeley County would support it if we talk about public safety.
So
what's more, and SROs in our schools. They have every school have an SRO. More deputies on our staff. Who doesn't respect the fact that we want to make our county the safest county in West Virginia?
So I'm guessing the sales tax gets that gets shared by not only the residents that live in Berkeley County, but also the commuters that are coming through the county, the people that are coming here, that are building industry and staying here throughout the week and maybe traveling back home.
That drive up 81. We think probably, Bill, our estimate's about 30% of that fee would be collection would be from people from out of county.
So did I hear you say that also cannot be used for salaries and benefits?
You're talking about the impact fee bill?
No, the 1% sales
Oh, sure.
tax.
It can be.
Oh,
Sure.
okay. Okay.
I
I heard that wrong.
It's
It's
unlimited.
unlimited. Yeah.
Okay.
You can use it for all those things, and that would be the key to to making this county the safest county in West Virginia.
So there pretty much would not be a restriction
Correct.
on that sales tax.
That's correct.
And you know, the demand for public safety, and Commissioner Catlett mentioned it earlier. You think about firefighters, law enforcement officers, 911, but it goes deeper than that. You know, the more bad guys that get caught, now all of a sudden the prosecutor's busy, right? Then guess what? Now the courts are busier. So all of these things you talk about, every time that anybody from the county commission comes here, it's all driven because you're a growth county, right?
Mm-hmm.
Remember, the state defines, I think, 7 growth counties. Realistically, there's 1 county that has the issues that we have, uniquely so. But they have to play ball and understand that in the other 54, they have their own set of issues, and all of them typically are defined by cash flow, right? Monies. In some of the regressive counties where they don't have growth, they can't pay the bills for people to mow the grass. So you have county commissioners mowing grass. So Berkeley County Commission has never said, hey, we're the only ones struggling. They just have a set of struggles that are real. And if you live here, you feel it, right? If you were to sit at a shift debrief at the Sheriff's Department, you would find out that the amount of calls they take in one shift are equivalent to that of 2 weeks in some counties, right? Or they don't even have deputies, and the state police are doing the work because the deputies are solely handling the courthouse. So it's crazy what happens.
So I think you bring up a good point with the massive growth that we have within Berkeley County. It does put a strain on the court system, and you're going to need to have more judges. You need to have more space for courtrooms, and the county's taking on that, I guess, to try to find and renovate. And
It's a strain on every part of our infrastructure.
Absolutely.
Every part of it.
Yeah, our good friend Magistrate Scholl will tell you, as he sits down here and he's a man of statistics, and tell you, hey, we do more, and they do, right? So we're poised right now, as we understand it, and when the court makes actions and decides on their growth, they do it methodically, right? But we're guaranteed for probably 2 magistrates in the next 2 years, potentially another judge and a family court judge. I can tell you right now that the Berkeley County Judicial Center and its new annex, the old jail, old Sheriff's Department / 911, it's crazy. They're full. There's nowhere to put these people, and the Berkeley County Commission has no option but to give the court the space, make the court space that's needed.
which is what you're looking at the Crawford building.
That's correct. They have no choice. So
But that's going to come with a
What's
price
the,
tag.
What's the cost of that?
$20 million.
And impact fees can be used towards that. Could be a big player in that, paying for that.
Well, then, if you know you have to, well, I guess we've answered that question, because if you increase the impact fee, that just goes straight to the schools, and you can't use it for the Crawford building.
Right.
So you've maxed out your funding for something that could supply the Crawford building with money to refurbish.
That's on the county administration, that part of it. And that'll go towards paying off the revenue bonds to renovate that facility.
Yeah. So let's go to data centers here, because a couple months ago, this was a big conversation. There was the possibility that the county might sue the state over this. There's no conversation about that I hear any longer. Is that no longer an option in regards to the way the tax money will be distributed from the data center?
So all options are on the table, right? I believe when this started, the Berkeley County Commission and its lobby firm worked diligently and worked very hard up and down the halls of the Capitol. And what was a zero return on tax to the counties, they were taking it all, has now gotten up to where the loss is really about 20%. So it's definitely more palatable than it was in the beginning, but you never want to lose, right? And when you can identify that the funds are needed, but again, nobody wants to be greedy. The president, the vice president, and all the commissioners have said, listen, we're in this together. The rulemaking part of the bill is about to happen in the next month or two. So I think right now, Mr. Vice President, we're in a holding pattern.
We are. And there's no desire on my part to even consider suing or anything. We're going to end up with 80% of what we would have gotten at the current bill. Mm-hmm. So, and of course we have a data center coming.
We visited their corporate headquarters last week.
Yeah, Gary and Eddie was down to visit the company that's building the one here in Berkeley County. They visited a facility down in Virginia, and y'all were happy with your visit.
It's awesome.
And they're already starting. I mean, I can see the trucks and everything. They're our neighbors at hospice. So
a little larger than we anticipated. I think we were talking 110, but now it's going to be one building's 90 some, and then the other one's 60 some. So we're at 150. What is it, megawatts? Yeah.
But they are, again, this is full disclosure here, they are going to build a road, another road, to get in. Yes? Is that your understanding? Okay.
As we understand it.
Because there's a lot of traffic on that road.
Well,
right
I can
now.
tell
But there is.
Yeah, I mean, we
We-
have all these townhouses that were
You
unanticipated.
were a nice little quiet neighborhood at
Yeah,
one
we were a
time.
quiet neighborhood. Now we're not.
No,
Well,
they've grown bigger than you thought, but they won't require a microgrid. They can still take power off the pole.
That's correct.
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 In Maria, we were at one about 2/3 the size of the Blarcher building that's coming to be your neighbor, and of course they do a dog and pony show, right? And literally, door shut, standing outside, you didn't even know the building existed. You couldn't hear it. Now they were running on provided power. In the event generators came on, which happens, but they don't happen all the time, you absolutely would hear the generators. But they 50 feet on the other side of the line, literally just like an office building, you couldn't hear it.
So, is there a difference in the formula for the tax distribution if a microgrid is not involved?
It's not.
Same way
not
off the
same.
pole as if you had a microgrid
It
there.
is. Yes.
All right. When do you anticipate that data center being online, Gary?
2027.
Early, middle, late?
Late.
When do you anticipate tax revenue flowing from that data center?
2029.
So it takes over a year for that to
does.
catch up?
Right.
Why is that?
It's just everything. There's a year about property taxes are a year behind. The year that the first year they don't hit the books. It's a year, the following year.
That's the same with residential?
Everything.
Everything works that way.
Yep.
Right. So 2029, are you already at the point where you can estimate roughly how much tax revenue you'll be receiving?
Not really, because you don't know. I mean, it's all predicted, right? So they come in and it's $1 billion building, and they say, well, we expect a $3 billion worth of personal property inside. On the interior stuff in West Virginia, that property is assessed at salvage value. But it's still, $4 billion at salvage value. Let's call it $1 billion. Property taxes on $1 billion is a lot of money. So the math that was done when we were in Charleston, really trying to survive and sacrifice and get to where we got, we were estimating potentially about $8 to $9 million of revenue from just this project.
Your cut.
Our cut. So we're at 80% of that.
All right. So
With the new law.
the revenue is generated two ways. One is from the actual value of the land that the building is on, and all the land that's owned to contain the building, and then the equipment inside the building is
Personal
also
property.
taxed.
That's correct.
So there's two different tax streams there.
There are.
Of the two, the one that's more likely to generate continued increasing revenue would be the land, I would presume.
Well, the personal property, while you remember in the computing world, it's forever. It's in a perpetual. It ages the second they put it in. So its value, it'll have peaks and valleys because they put new stuff in. It gets reassessed and so on and so forth. So it should be, in my opinion, a consistent form, no different than what the real is. But the real will increase quickly.
There were
In
rumors
Berkeley County.
that there were two other data centers being considered in Berkeley County as well. Is that accurate?
It is accurate. It is accurate.
Is it likely?
I believe it is.
And how soon would that be?
They're in response from the development process right now, so probably call it 2 years post that, so 31.
All right, so you take in $8 to $9 million in property taxes. Does a 78% of that then go to the schools?
That would be our portion.
All right, and are there any restrictions on how you can use that?
There are not.
So you can see the next argument building in our audience would be, okay, so if you know this is coming online and you have impact fees, why do
Why?
you need a sales tax too?
Well, remember, when it comes to property tax, the county commission's in control of the levy rate. So in the people who allowed this have a bad taste in their mouth when they did the home rule with the municipalities, because there was a promise by them that, hey, we'll reduce the B&O and then we'll do this. So all I can offer to you is the Berkeley County Commission has never not said, here's the money we collect and here's where we spend it. On the table, it's everywhere. They can reduce the levy rate that would take the burden off of Grandma, Grandpa, Maria, Bill, Steve, and reduce their normal collection commensurate with the new income. So you've heard Steve, Eddie, John, everybody say, hey, we can identify, we can use an additional $12 million. Most of that would go to public safety, day one. So they could modify the levy rate and adjust it to get the revenues where they need to be. So there is no intent, and I'll let Commissioner Catlett speak, for the coffers to build any greater than they are. They're just trying to provide the services that the demand can stand by.
But isn't that the same argument that got the cities their home rule, and they didn't, according to some, live up to their bargain of reducing the B&O tax?
That's what I
Aren't you
hear.
giving us the same line?
That's exactly what I hear.
right.
I can't
You can,
defend
so you can hear
I
the
absolutely can see it.
skepticism
Sure.
with that?
Steve?
Sure. I mean, I agree. Yeah, that's why the cities were criticized heavily by the legislature.
And why you're having such a hard time getting home rule yourself?
Maybe
Yes, it certainly plays a huge part. But in saying that, the Senate passed it 25-8 because they know the need of the counties. Okay, you know, you take a lot of rural counties in West Virginia that have 5,000 and 6,000 residents, and they have one ambulance, but they have 1 million visitors a year in Tucker County because of Canaan Blackwater Falls.
Mm-hmm.
Guess where all their services take care of the visitors, and they don't pay anything. They don't pay anything to help with that situation. So, as a tourist perspective, when you want people to come to West Virginia and know they're going to be taken care of if they are injured in West Virginia at our state parks and in our rural counties as well, just think what that could do to those folks. I mean, it could double their budget in the first year, and then they could have several ambulances and crews so that they can take care of visitors as well as their constituents. And the only form of revenue that we as a commission can do without impact fees, without the sales tax, is raise the property taxes. That's it. That's our only source of revenue right now. I meant in terms of how we increase it. And that's the last thing this commission wants to do is raise the levy rates. We don't want to do that.
And they haven't for years, right? They've not raised the levy rate for the better part of 6 years. So I think they've proven that they're living within their means. They have the demands. They're failing with some of the services. I mean, if you ask the Sheriff's Department, they're going to tell you they could double the staff tomorrow and just barely exist. So it's difficult. And again, back to my statement earlier, you know, we're one of 55, but ours is really, really, really unique right now.
So here's a question for you. With, looking at the sales tax, if you wanted to increase that or is able to get that passed by 1%, for the people now, the city of Martinsburg already has that additional 1%. Does this apply also to them?
Does not.
So if you're going into the city of Martinsburg and purchasing or dining,
You
you're
still
going
pay
to see
7%.
that you're going to see that 7% there, but
Right.
the county as a whole is not going to see that 1%. So it's kind of like it's not. I don't want to say it's not allowed, but it's not going to be applicable to downtown city of Martinsburg, correct?
That's correct. So
that
City of
the-
Martinsburg right now is 6% to the state, and they have 1% locally. You go to Walmart in Spring Mills, it's 6%. So if
But
this were to
Walmart
pass,
in
Martinsburg is
downtown
7%.
is 7%.
it's 7%.
Yes.
So if you go to Martinsburg downtown, let's say the county commission can facilitate, Walmart downtown stays at 7%, but now Walmart in Spring Mills is 7%. This would not increase the city.
So anything
by-
within the city of Martinsburg's limits
doesn't
Exempt
change.
wise.
It's
from that.
exempted.
We just want to make it equal, so it's equal across the whole county.
Can I ask a different question since we're all about tax and we have just a smaller amount of time left? Talk a little bit about a Parks and Rec levy because we know that has come up and you know, Steve and I know from many years ago, obviously it takes a super majority to pass, and our sense is that that there is no appetite for that with the current county commission. Yes.
I would say the consensus as a whole is there's not an appetite to put an excess levy on the ballot. Again, to increase the only people that pay that are the property owners again. So.
Maria,
So-
I think to be fair with that and to help Steve, we sat here and talked for almost an hour. The county commission is trying to identify revenue, right? They're trying. They've set priorities. Parks and Recreation was in front of them 2 months ago saying, hey, we've got a new priority for you. I think the concept is they understand their priority, stand by. This man eats, lives, breathes, bleeds Parks and Recreation.
Absolutely.
So he's a hard yes probably for anything that you could give to Parks and Rec. It's unfair that they have to sit here and look like, well, they don't want to, or they're being hypocritical. That's not the case at all. Everybody understands the Parks and Recreation needs help, but it's all about priorities. There's irons in the fire. They're working processes. They can't just upset the turnip cart, as my grandfather would say, just because they've got a new request. It's a process.
And and clearly a piece from impact fees goes to Parks and Recreation.
A significant piece, $1,700 a house. So
So
now
do
that
the
can
math, 1.7 million.
yeah. So that could be a couple $1 million a year. Based on the current growth. So we're going to be able to help in that respect. But that, again, that's only for new growth, new project, capital development. It doesn't pay for salaries and benefits and staff.
And I can remember however many years ago it
98,
was. And
1998 was the
okay.
last time.
And folks don't understand. This is just not 51%. This is 60% to get passed.
It's a
And
supermajority difficult vote.
it is a
and
That would
difficult
support
vote.
one discipline or request.
Absolutely.
And we're not saying it isn't important. They can't, and poor Steve should never be asked that question because it's unfair,
Well,
right?
no, but I'm fine with asking that question because our community and quality of life in Parks and Rec is very important to this community. And as we grow, we must extend that and grow it.
And I didn't mean to
And-
put you on
and-
the
and-
spot.
no, that's
It's
fine.
just our
No,
history.
but
I'm
Steve's
fine with
an
being on the
elected
spot.
Berkeley County
I am,
commissioner, and
I'm fine with
you
being
know,
on the spot.
Get it, Rob.
But what I'm saying is,
answer questions.
we've had a recent meeting with city officials and our officials, and we are committed to fund Parks and Rec at a level they need to be to maintain their existing parks. And as we grow those parks, like the Inwood Park, we're opening bids tomorrow on the
are.
Inwood Park. What a wonderful thing for South Berkeley County. They're dying for it. But we're committed to grow that budget so they can take care of it properly. The last thing you want to do is build new things and not take care of them. And we're committed to doing that. It's just trying to identify the funding mechanism that best fits to do it. And I think I was offended for many years that we were considered an outside agency because all we're doing is taking
That's
care of
okay, Steve.
city-
You're in good company.
but all we're doing is taking care of city and county parks. So if it weren't for Parks and Rec, the city and county would have to have their own department to do that. And I truly believe it would cost them more if they had their own department than they would if they fund.
We have good friends and good partners in the city of Martinsburg. The city of Martinsburg and the Berkeley County Commission are united in ensuring that Parks and Recreation are not outside agencies. They're part of the team to make the quality of life in Berkeley County what it needs to be.
But when these funds come along from the impact fees, and they build that infrastructure and more buildings, and you're going to have staffing in those buildings,
right.
and that's going to be significant.
1% sales tax.
Again, impact fees do not cover staff.
Right, and it's not just replacing staff that are currently there. You're adding staffs, and that's going to be a significant
1%
annual
sales
cost.
tax.
He
Yes,
said that a couple
I
times.
understand. I understand.
I've got a minute left. Final word is yours, Steve Catlett.
Well, our objective on the commission is make Berkeley County the greatest place in the world that you want to live, okay? And that includes public safety. That includes expanding our park system and our quality of life in Berkeley County. We want people to move here not because the houses are cheaper and the taxes are cheaper, because you really want to live here and enjoy living here. And that's our objective, and that's our only objective. We don't want to put the burden always back on the property owners, and that's why we're seeking other ways to try to fund things that doesn't affect directly the property owners in Berkeley County.
Gary, you get to leave. Steve is held captive another half hour.
He can do it.
Thanks for coming in, Gary.
Thank you, folks.
Steve, you'll be joined by
We've got
Buzz
the best
Poland.
county administrator in West Virginia.
I think everybody does say that.
There's no
thank
question about that.
Thank
I've
you.
heard that.
Yeah,
It's
Hey.
the truth.
Top
Maybe
of
it's
the
me
hour.
saying it.
Coming
Right?
up,
it is.
we are back in a moment. This is Talk Radio, WRNR Martinsburg, and TV 10.